Hello, everybody. Welcome to the season one finale of Who is Better. And we are talking about one of the most, if not the most, historic rivalry in wrestling history. I, today, will be backing up, in my opinion, the greatest wrestler to ever step foot in a wrestling ring, The Rock versus Chris's pick. Some people argue who is also one of the best ever to step in the ring, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And to call it right down the middle, we got our good co-host Berman to do that for us. So, any prior thoughts before we dive right into this, guys?
Gonna be a good even fight. I hope so.
All right, Chris.
We're gonna get
So,
them
I'm going
likes.
to be honest here. The Rock and Steve Austin are very, very different. And at the end of the day, I don't feel like there can exactly be one that is entirely better. It really just does come down to preferences. But my preference is The Rock, and I'll be supporting The Rock as much as possible. And Chris will be supporting Steve Austin as much as possible. So, without further ado, let's dive into the first category, the entrance and theme. Now, before we get started, I'll admit both themes are great. Both themes are iconic. Both themes are fire. But if I gotta give one the slight advantage, it's gonna be The Rock's. All that needs to be heard is three words, and that crowd loses their shit. And honestly, there's been a Hollywood mix of it when he went Hollywood Rock in 2003, and that was honestly where it was at its best. But the mix even today is quite nice. The mix in the Attitude Era was quite nice, and obviously, like I said, it may not be the craziest theme in the world, but it does its thing. It slaps, and honestly, just those three words gets the crowd ready to see The Rock kick some candy ass. So my point's gonna go to If You Smell.
Now, I'll give The Rock that is a pretty dope ass theme. But I'm sorry, Daniel. Stone Cold's theme with the glass shattering, you immediately know who that redneck boy is coming down. It is so iconic. It is the greatest theme of all time. And god damn it, when I heard it at WrestleMania one last time, it made me cry. But you know that theme far and wide. And that belongs to Stone Cold Steve Austin, god damn it. Because he said so. All right, Berber, take it away.
Oh my god, Jesus!
Well, he's not lying. I gotta say these two are really iconic songs. As soon as you hear the songs, everyone loses their shit, and it's completely fine. I probably feel the same way most of the time. But there's only one that always gets me hyped to see them, and and that's always gonna be Stone Cold Steve Austin. As soon as that glass shatters, I'm always excited to see him and see how redneck he's gonna be.
All right, so Stone Cold Steve Austin 1 point, The Rock 0 points. Going into the second category, which is the finisher. Now, I'm gonna be honest here. Both finishers are quite cool, but not to say anything against Steve Austin. I do really think the stunner is cool. However, I will admit I think it is a little basic in comparison to the rock bottom, where the rock bottom isn't a choke slam, but it's kind of like a variation of it. And I don't know, just it looks really cool. It may not be like the most like, grand looking move ever as well, but I will say I think there is more creativity in the rock bottom than there is in the stunner, personally. And no offense to the stunner, I kind of prefer the diamond cutter or the RKO to the stunner if I'm keeping it quite honest. So yeah, I'm just gonna give it to the rock bottom. I think it's just the simply better finisher.
And for Steel and Steve Austin, the stunner is pretty basic, but he out of every wrestler, he's the guy that sells it perfectly. And as basic as it sounds, he was so good he passed it down to Kevin Owens and many wrestlers to this day. They don't necessarily use it as a finisher, but that move by itself is iconic. And without Steve Austin, that stunner wouldn't be as big as wrestling as it would be today. So I give it to Steve Austin.
Ooh, this is a really hard one. I actually like both of these. Don't get me wrong. I think to me the Rock Bottom's more generic to me. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of Uranagi. I'm gonna call it more like a Uranagi. But I like the Stunner more because of how some people sell it. Some people sell it more ridiculous, but some of them sell it pretty good and just looks like they can knock the hell out. Um, all right, I'm gonna go for Stunner.
All right. Stone Cold Steve Austin 2, The Rock 0. Next category. All right, now this next category definitely is going to come to me easier than the past two categories, and it is the overall move set. Let's be real to Steve Austin. Again, not trying to slander him, but he really does not have a creative move set at all. It mainly is just elbows, punches, stomps. Really simple shit if you think about it. He really only has that stunner if you think about like the overall grand moves that you I guess you could say he has, and that in itself is like I said wasn't isn't even too grand of a move. It's just more of an like an iconic one. So when he goes to the Rock, though, he has moves that honor his heritage, like the Samoan drop. But he also, has like the little nip ups and whatnot. He really is able to, put in some character work into his move sets. And the way, sometimes he'll hit a spine buster out of desperation, then look into the crowd as if, he needs their backing or needs their support. Honestly, it gives every move he does extra intensity because you know that the crowd feels exactly what The Rock is doing inside that ring, whether it's literally something as simple as a DDT or a suplex or a freaking sharpshooter or a people's elbow or a swinging neck breaker. Again, The Rock may not be super grand either, but at least his wrestling moves are a bit more to definitely digest and talk about in comparison to Steve Austin's. So this is an easy point to me. I'm sorry, it's going to be The Rock.
And I don't want to be that guy. And I'm supposed to be defending my boy, but honestly, Daniel, I have to give it to The Rock too. Like,
It would be kind of insulting if you didn't. Yeah.
it's like don't get me wrong, I love Stone Cold's moves, but like you said, besides like his basics, his stomp to the chest, his spine buster, his head punches or whatever, it's pretty basic. And not to discredit the man, but the Rock, I gotta give it to The Rock, even though I'm not supposed to go against my boy. But The Rock's taking the move set because there's so much Stone Cold could do. But it's awesome though.
Yeah. So Berman, even though The Rock already got this point, would you agree or disagree?
No, I completely agree. Yeah, Austin is more like a meats and potatoes wrestler. I would call it. He's very generic. He's really like what I just said, and I think the Rock has a lot more variations and a lot more interesting moves. So definitely Rock.
All right. Stone Cold Steve Austin 2, The Rock 1. Next category is the mic skills. Now, don't get me wrong here. Steve Austin has some great mic skills. Uh, give me a hell yeah. Can't, talking about bringing out a can of whoop ass. Then it all results in hitting the stunner. But I got one criticism with Steve Austin that I don't have with The Rock. I feel like after you've seen one Stone Cold Steve Austin promo, you've seen basically just about every Stone Cold Steve Austin promo. He really does not have a very versatile, you know, kind of uh, way of expressing himself on the mic at all. But when you compare it to The Rock's definitely been able to pull off more things on the mic as well. And that was even before his acting days, you can say. Before there was ever a CM Punk or an MJF or a Samoa Joe, guys like that, the real savage on the mic was The Rock. And whether it was him doing roasts to guys like Kurt Angle, Undertaker, Triple H, it didn't matter. He was easily the most entertaining part on the microphone in the Attitude Era. And I think that is pretty undisputed. So I'm going to give this point to The Rock.
Dude, are you gonna discredit my boy like that? His 316, his chants of the crowd. The guy knows how to root the crowd, and god damn it, he's so good for it. They may
Like,
not
I
be.
get it.
No, I know. And I know The Rock is pretty influential too, but compared to Stone Cold, he's more of a badass than The Rock is. And when he talks on the mic, he speak his innocent mind. He doesn't need all these
Innocent
fancy.
mind.
He doesn't need to spit all these fancy Hollywood acting scripts. He just gets on the mic and throws a can of whoop ass.
Okay, but The Rock doesn't spill out a bunch of Hollywood scripts. He does a bunch of legitimate roasts that are not only funny but also true to his opponents just about 100% of the time.
Daniel, he was getting canceled for that Chinese roast. Canceled
What Chinese roast?
when The Rock was speaking Chinese.
That what are you talking
You
about?
never see that where he's like roasting some dude, and oh my god, don't take this out of context if we ever fucking make it on the channel. But there is a promo, and I'll put in this video without avoiding the
I
copyright.
guarantee that's not even from
No,
WWE.
that is from WWE, where he's just like, the only Chinese I know how to speak is Ching Chong. Want to
Oh, never mind.
That's your boy. He's getting
That is my
fucking
boy.
canceled.
That is
He
my
doesn't need to
boy.
be
No,
racist. Stone Cold's
it's not
American.
racist. It's funny. It's funny.
No, you're getting canceled, Daniel.
Why are you trying to turn this
Again.
into The Rock as racist when I bring up legitimate points, you son of a bitch?
See, that's another line from Steve Austin. Case closed. Give it to my boy.
Oh,
Give it
you
to my
know Steve
boy.
Austin beats women. You know Steve Austin beats women. Yo.
Dude, we don't.
He beat his
Allegedly.
wife before.
Allegedly.
No.
Allegedly.
You wanna bring in controversies. You wanna bring in controversies.
That was just part of the act, dude. Vince McMahon just said that in the script. It doesn't count.
Oh hell!
Dude, it
Get
doesn't
the hell
count.
out of here! All right, you know what, Berman? just take it away.
This is a good heated one. Mike Skills. I love these two. I remember watching these guys in the Attitude Era, like more before that too. I love these two guys were great on the mic. I love both of them, but I gotta say, to me, I like Rock more mainly because of how he really roasts people more like what John Cena does a lot. That Rock does pretty much the exact same thing, but I think he does it better than John Cena. And geez, I love every time he talks. I remember the thing he
Oh,
did
good.
against Baron Corbin or King Corbin. That was very funny. It made me laugh a lot.
That was his
So
last appearance.
yeah, so I'm definitely gonna give it to Rock.
All right, Stone Cold Steve Austin 2, The Rock 2. The next category. Now the next category. Who's the better face? Now. You can spin this in one or two ways. I'm gonna say this. Okay. Austin was a good face. He was a good face, but the only thing he really was ever a face for was going against the boss. Like legitimately. But when you look at The Rock, he had storylines with the boss, storylines with the NWO, storylines with the Brothers of Destruction, a huge storyline rivalry with Triple H, and another huge one with Kurt Angle. And he had a huge rivalry, which was hilarious from every single week in 2001 with Chris Jericho. Simply put, The Rock can do many, many things as a face. Many things. I don't feel like Stone Cold really can do that many things as a face. And sure, he's had a lot of rivalries, but again, the only one people will ever really use his face run for is the Vince McMahon work. So I just got to give this to The Rock.
And if I'm being honest, Daniel, you're completely right because outside the Vince McMahon thing, I mean, Stone Cold is he's a good hero, but like not the sense of like a baby face. Like he's more of a what's it called? Shit, an anti-hero.
An anti-hero.
Basically,
kind of like what Randy Orton is when he's a face.
Yeah, so it's not his strongest suit. I mean, I like it and people prefer it, but I like his heel face a little better. But we'll get into the next category. But I'm just gonna give it to The Rock. There's not competition outside of Vince McMahon feud. I don't really think there was anything that major that happened with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I'll give it to The Rock.
All right, so now even though the point is guaranteed for The Rock, do you agree, Berman?
He's the one of the best faces. Everyone loves him. So it's simple enough. Yeah, Rock.
All right, so now is Stone Cold Steve Austin 2, The Rock 3. Next category. The next category is who is the better heel, The Rock or Stone Cold. Now, Stone Cold is a great heel. I'm not going to deny it. But I think The Rock is an even greater one. And you're probably questioning how. How is that possible? Well, let me explain. There's the Nation of Domination days. There's the corporate rock days. There's the Hollywood rock days, which is my favorite version of The Rock, uh, going back to 2003. And, he simply was able to take a match in history, right? About WrestleMania X18, if you want to get technical. He was getting booed by an entire Toronto stadium against Hulk Hogan, and he, uh, you know, uh, and that wasn't okay to him. And then the same thing happened to Brock Lesnar. It wasn't okay to him, and him using events that he got booed at because people were pissed about him leaving wrestling for Hollywood. It got him some heat, but he turned that heat into something beautiful with Hollywood Rock. And simply put, he made people respect him again because his character work is just amazing. And again, taking events that happened and being able to make a whole ass, heel turn out of it just shows how dedicated the character work The Rock really is. And that really shows exactly why The Rock ended up becoming one of the biggest names on the planet. He's able to pay attention to character work in ways that Stone Cold Steve Austin just never had the ability to do. And that's not even anything against Stone Cold. It's just that The Rock is, in my personal opinion, the best wrestler of all time. And I think, again, that commitment to character even qualifies for his heel work. So I'm going to give this point to The Rock.
And for me, I I'll give you all the credit in the world, Daniel. But Stone Cold ever attack Michael Cole? No, he attacked him. And not only that, dude, Stone Cold's run, he also had one of the best tag team partnerships with the two-man power trip, Daniel. He defined that era. Stone Cold is such an evil son of a bitch that no matter who he goes against during his heel phase time, it was legendary, dude. The guy's a fucking menace to society. And him betraying The Rock too, mind you, to join Vince McMahon's little fucking squad was the ultimate sign of villainy. So just for those two moments alone, I have to give it to Stone Cold Steve Austin, dude. He's more of a villain, and he doesn't need to become three different villains to become his best version of himself. He is the heel, and he
He doesn't
will.
need to become a. All right, Chris. Now that statement is just wrong. The corporate Rock and the Nation of Domination Rock completely worked for completely different reasons. Nation of Domination, he was in the IC title picture, and that whole those days were able to help him build himself up to being corporate Rock, and then corporate Rock is what kind of helped him be loved by, and appreciated by the fans because again there's just that character work. So he didn't just accomplish it with Hollywood Rock. He's done it over and over and over again. He's just subverted those expectations.
That's
So
true.
Berman.
But to counter it, I think out of all his heel turns, it's probably the Hollywood Rock that was probably the most influential, in my opinion. I think that's his best kind of heel compared to his other two, which are they're not weak or anything, but like the Hollywood Rock is what really sells it. But I still got to give it to my boy Steve Austin though, because he was good from the beginning. Oh,
So is The Rock though.
true.
All right, take it away, Berman.
This is hard because these two are great heels, but I still remember when Steve Austin was going by the name Stunning Steve Austin a very long time ago. But that was a very, very long time ago, and I remember he was a pretty good. He was a heel back then too, very. And I remember that, and I remember all the heels things he did. It was messed up. And same thing, The Rock. I always remember The Rock doing a lot of good things, but I always think a good heel is one that really makes someone really hate you, and definitely that's Steve Austin for me.
All right, I can respect it. So Steve Austin 3, The Rock 3. Now this final category is going to determine who is the better wrestler in the all-time status, The Rock or Steve Austin. This is insane. So let's move on to the final category, the best match. Now, uh, our two best matches are going to be completely different from each other, I guarantee, and that's okay. My best match is going to be The Rock versus Mankind, Royal Rumble 1999 in an I Quit match. Now, this match was brutal. The Rock going in as the challenger who lost his championship a few weeks ago to Mankind on the biggest Raw episode of all time when Mankind won the belt and basically ended the WCW Monday Night Wars in that route. So, yeah, this was riding on a lot of intensity, and the winner was going to go on to WrestleMania. So basically, though, this match was, for the most part, pretty one-sided for The Rock. Mick Foley got his offense, but The Rock just kicked his ass, and he was just ruthless in this match. Chair shot after chair shot after chair shot, and not just the chair shots. They fought, in the upper levels of the crowd, only to, screw Mick Foley over and all this other stuff. He gave an ass whooping to Mick Foley, but Mick Foley was so refusing to say, "I quit," until The Rock, being the corporate scumbag that he is, basically stole a recording of Mick Foley saying "I quit," and he was able to sneak that recording and just basically win back his WWF title in some scumbag fashion. And if it wasn't for that, he wouldn't have went on to WrestleMania, more than likely. Of course, they flipped the titles two more times, but this was definitely the best match in the series of Rock and Mankind matches. This definitely was the height of the intensity of the rivalry as well, and you can just feel it. Honestly, there's just blood. It's hardcore. It's classic to Mankind. It's classic to The Rock and how charismatic he is, talking shit on the mic in the middle of a match. That match literally represents every little thing about The Rock, and I think it's his peak performance. So that is my best match. The Rock versus Mankind WF Championship I Quit match, Royal Rumble 1999.
And before I begin, I love that match. And funnily enough, my match is also too I Quit, but it's with his match with Bret Hart with WrestleMania 13. Now, I know that's cheating because everyone's going to pick that match, but honestly,
No, that's not cheating. My match is better.
no, they're both as good. But anywho, there were so many spots and moments where Stone Cold and Bret Hart were just going ham. And mind you, this was this recorded like in the 80s, right, Daniel?
It would be 1997.
1997. I don't. From every single old school match around that time, from what I've personally seen, I did not expect to see that much bloodshed in this I Quit match. Because at first I was like, "Oh, this is just gonna be like your normal standard, you know, one on one." But god damn it, dude, I've never seen my boy get his ass kicked so hard. But besides that, him becoming a heel and him turning into a face, while oh Jesus Christ! I can't even. While Bret Hart becomes the fucking heel too, it's insane, dude. And then Stone Cold hit his sharpshooter onto Bret Hart, and him just counting on it. There's just so many moments of them, and also too fighting into the crowd. It's just insane, dude. It's such a classic match. Like it's, I feel like it's just as good as Mankind and The Rock, but personally, I prefer this match more over. Not to discredit the I Quit match, because the way it ends was just so good. Like you didn't really need, no offense to The Rock, a gimmicky way to finish the match. And I love the match, by the way, Daniel. But the way that this one ended was fair, it was brutal, and I just loved it, man. It's a classic for me, so I have to give it to my boy Stone Cold Steve Austin.
All right, and it's up to you, Berman. You have to decide between these two best matches ever, which are both I Quit matches, funny enough.
Well, the big thing about me, I love I Quit matches. This is one of my favorite matches of all time. And funny enough, one of those matches you mentioned is actually probably one of my all-time favorite I Quit matches ever, and that's actually that Stone Cold match. So that's a funny thing to me. So it's always hard between these two, even if I remember watching both of these Stone Cold both matches, and I more or less actually love the Rock was good. I always loved seeing him, and it was great way. The great way it was a good way how he won it, but a cheap way at the same time. So I don't know. I did. To me, I liked it, but not all-time favorite. I gotta give it to Stone Cold just because of how much bloodshed, and it was with the boy Bret the Hitman Hart, and it was a great match and very bloody.
Well. Stone Cold Steve Austin 4, The Rock 3. Even though I may not personally think it, it's the verdict of the show. Stone Cold is the better wrestler in the all-time status, but we can just appreciate just how legendary both of these figures have become in wrestling today. Thank you all so much for watching not just this episode, but season 1 of Who is Better and the Pile Driver podcast and this channel in general. We'll be back in a few weeks. I've been Daniel,
Berman.
That'd be Chris.
and we'll see you all in the next one. Peace.